backwards and forwards. Well, I'm not talking about each of you learning 3 days of content. I'm talking about if your presentation's 30 minutes, to learn that 30-minute presentation backwards and forwards and possibly work towards mastery. And it will transform your ability to influence.
Excellent. Great. So, talk to us about the key components. What goes into the sales process? What are the key elements of influencing others? Yeah.
Well, I have a process that I teach, and it'll take about 3 or 4 minutes to explain it. It's pretty simple. And I call it the sales mountain process. And imagine a mountain, and you're at the bottom of the mountain. You first meet this prospect, and you want to lead them up the mountain with you. And when you're leading them up the mountain, you're leading them to a point where they're ready to purchase from you. And when they get to that point, I call that the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is anywhere as you're climbing up the mountain together. When you get 75% up the mountain, you've got 25% left to go to reach the summit. And in that last 25%, that's when the prospect is in the sweet spot and they're ready to make a buying decision. And it's important to understand that the prospect, in most cases, does not start with you in the sweet spot. We've got to take them there and take them through this process. And so the process starts with lead generation, and then you're going to set an appointment with this person, assuming that that's the model that you're following. And then now you're on the live presentation with them. And let's say it's a face-to-face presentation. It works the same over the phone. And we're going to lead with trust and rapport. And we must lead with that. And the reason why is that when you start your presentation, we talked earlier about what do you think of when you think of a salesperson, and it's all these negative thoughts.
Right.
Well, your prospect has those same thoughts. So if you're a real estate agent and you're meeting with this prospect about listing their home, the prospect in many cases, Chris, starts off the presentation with resistance.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, this person's just trying to get my listing. And so if you're trying to influence somebody who has their guard up, it's very challenging. So instead of trying to influence them with their guard up, let's just simply get them to lower their resistance. And so we're going to build trust and rapport, and it's actually a state of harmony that you enter into with the prospects. That's the first thing we do when we're live with them or over the phone. And then...
Hey, now, Eric, can I interrupt you for just a second? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's run into this situation where a salesperson has tried to establish rapport, but I'm not interested in their rapport right at that moment. You know, I mean, they're saying, hi, you know, they call up on the phone, they say, hi, I'm so-and-so, how are you doing today? You having a good day? Well, the last thing I want to do is talk to them about what kind of day I'm having. Yeah. And it occurs to me, and I'm sort of saying this partly because I've watched some master salespeople at work, that it's more than just the words you say, that somehow there must be, you know, building that trust and rapport must be related to having a sensitivity to where that person is at that moment and what's going to be appropriate or inappropriate to build that trust and rapport. Am I right in that?
You are absolutely right. And what you're talking about is it's a different kind of trust and rapport in the scenario that you described. Because in the scenario you described, that's like, I mean, it sounded like a cold call, like somebody calling you and it's not an expected call. And a lot of us make those calls. I still to this day will pick up the phone and make cold calls. And we have to understand that when we're making those kinds of calls, in many cases we're interrupting the other person.
Right.
And so when I'm making a call like that, I'm going to attempt to build trust and rapport, and I may not be able to for, you know, a variety of reasons. And what I'm going to do is a sorting process. So my metaphor for making calls like that is a deck of cards, and each lead is a card, and I'm looking for the ace of spades. And that's the person that wants to talk to me. So I flip over the first card, and I might ask them, how are you today? And they might give a response, a non-rapport response. And I may end up getting off that call and not making any progress, but, okay, that was the jack of diamonds. It wasn't the ace of spades. And then I just keep flipping the cards And my job, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm looking for the people who are already interested.
Okay. Now, can I stop you again?
Yeah.
Because my business partner and co-author of the Passion Test, Janet Bray Atwood, used to be in sales, used to do cold calls all the time, right? And I have to admit, I was awed watching her, and I'd like to share with you a scenario and ask you to comment on it. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Because what she was doing is she was making cold calls to corporations and inviting them to set up, to have a book fair put on at their location where employees could come and buy books at a discounted rate. And I remember listening to her one time, and it so surprised me. But she got on the phone, she called up, and I couldn't hear the other person on the line, but she introduced herself and then talked for about 5 seconds. She said like one sentence, and then she sat and listened for about 30 seconds, and then she said, "Gosh, I so understand how you're feeling. It sounds like you're having a day from hell, and if I were you, I wouldn't want to talk to me either. How about if I give you a call back tomorrow? Is there a time that would work for you?" And what so impressed me in that moment is that she just seemed to be so tuned in to where that person was in that moment, and the outcome, just so you know it, the outcome was the guy said, "Yeah, tomorrow's fine. Give me a call at 2," and she made the call, and she ended up setting up the whole thing. But what impressed me was her ability to immediately tune in to what that person was feeling, to be able to empathize with where he was coming from, but not just get off the phone. Not just sort of say, "Oh, well, this isn't the person for me." And could you talk a little bit about that and what we can learn from that?